The text came at 6 a.m. Change of plans. You're not joining us. I'm Frank Davis, and I just paid $25,000 for their family vacation. For 2 years, my daughter-in-law, Jessica, had treated me like the embarrassing relative who couldn't afford to keep up. She saw the work boots, the old truck, the simple clothes, and decided I was beneath her social circle. What she didn't know was that 3 years ago, I sold my construction company for $8.2 million. She judged my wallet by my work boots. Big mistake. Instead of calling to argue, I did something that would change everything in 90 seconds. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you are watching from. Because this is the story of how one phone call at Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport turned a family vacation into a life lesson about respect, and why you should never, ever judge a book by its cover. Let me back up 2 years. That's when the pattern started. My wife Sarah had just passed away from cancer. 35 years of marriage, gone. Tommy, my son, was trying to help me through it. But Jessica, his wife, she had different ideas about what our family should look like. The first sign was Christmas dinner 2022. Jessica seated me at the kids' table, not with my grandson Billy, who's 8, with her teenage nephews who spent the whole meal on their phones. When I asked Tommy about it later, he just shrugged. Jessica handles the seating arrangements, Dad. Then came the gift exchanges. Christmas 2023, I gave them a cashier's check for $5,000 toward their mortgage. Jessica gave me a $20 gift card to Home Depot. The message was clear. You're the handyman. Stay in your lane. But the real wake-up call happened at Tommy's birthday party last summer. Jessica was talking to her book club friends on the patio. I was fixing their broken fence gate again, for free, when I heard her voice through the window. Poor Frank just doesn't understand our lifestyle, she said. Tommy feels obligated to include him, but honestly, he makes everyone uncomfortable. You can tell he's never been around successful people. Her friend asked, what does he do for work? Was a contractor. Blue collar his whole life. Drives this embarrassing old truck. Wears the same work boots everywhere. I keep telling Tommy we need boundaries. I stood there holding my toolbox, listening to them laugh. These women had no idea I'd paid for the patio they were sitting on, the fence I was fixing, the down payment on the house they were in. See, after Sarah died, I'd been quietly helping Tommy and Jessica more than they knew. Their mortgage payment? $3,400 a month. I'd been covering it since Tommy's software company laid him off in early 2023. Jessica thought their savings were lasting longer than expected. She had no clue her father-in-law was keeping them afloat. The medical bills, when Billy broke his arm, $8,000 cash. I handed it to Tommy in an envelope, told him not to worry about paying it back. Jessica never asked where the money came from. Their wedding 5 years ago? I wrote a $45,000 check for the venue because Tommy's paycheck couldn't cover Jessica's dream wedding. She picked the most expensive place in Scottsdale. Never said thank you. But here's what really got to me. Every time I showed up to family events, Jessica would find some way to remind everyone about our different social levels. She'd make comments about my clothes, my truck, my simple way of looking at things. Always with this sweet smile, like she was being helpful. Frank, maybe you'd be more comfortable staying home for this one, she'd say about dinner parties. It's mostly Tommy's work colleagues. Very corporate. Or my personal favorite, don't worry about contributing to the wine fund, Frank. We know money's tight on a fixed income. Fixed income. I had more money sitting in checking accounts than most people see in a lifetime. Tommy started apologizing for me. Sorry Dad's running late. He probably had to change out of his work clothes. Dad's not much for fancy restaurants. You know how Dad is with technology. It was like watching my son erase me piece by piece, and I let it happen because I thought keeping the peace was more important than keeping my dignity. The breaking point should have been when Jessica forgot to invite me to Billy's school play, or when she changed the locks and didn't give me a key, even though I'd been watching their house during vacations for 3 years. But I kept quiet, kept writing checks, kept showing up when they needed something fixed or paid for. I thought if I was patient enough, generous enough, Jessica would eventually see that family means more than social status. I was wrong. The vacation to Turks and Caicos was supposed to be my olive branch. Jessica had been posting constantly on Instagram about needing a real vacation after Tommy found his new job. She kept talking about Grace Bay Resort, showing pictures to anyone who'd listen. "It's where all the influencers go," she'd say. $2,500 a night, but worth every penny. I did the math. 5 nights for 3 families, Tommy's, Jessica's parents, and her sister's crew, 8 people total. With flights, resort fees, and activities, we were looking at close to $30,000. Tommy called me in November, sounding defeated. "Dad, Jessica's heart is set on this place, but there's no way we can afford it. Not with the mortgage and Billy's school fees." "What if I helped?" I asked. "Dad, you don't understand. This isn't a camping trip. This is serious money." "How much serious money?" 25 grand minimum for 1 week. I could hear Jessica in the background. "Tell him we'll figure something else out. Maybe a nice hotel in Sedona." That night, I called Grace Bay Resort directly. Spoke to their VIP concierge, a woman named Maria, who remembered me from a business trip in 2019, back when I was still running Davis Construction. "Mr. Davis, how wonderful to hear from you. Are you planning another stay? I booked everything. 3 ocean view suites, first-class flights for 8 people, private airport transfers, spa credits, the works. $24,900. I put it on my black Amex card and had the confirmation sent to Tommy. His text came back in minutes. "Dad, what did you do?" "This is too much." I called him. "It's handled. Merry early Christmas." "But Dad, this is insane." "You can't afford this." There was that phrase again. "Can't afford this," from my son, who I'd been financially supporting for 2 years without him knowing it. "Tommy, I want to do this for the family. Your mom would have loved seeing Billy build sandcastles on that beach." That got him. Sarah had always dreamed of a luxury beach vacation, but we'd been too busy building the business. By the time we could afford it, she was too sick to travel. For 3 weeks, I was the hero. Jessica actually hugged me when Tommy told her. Posted a story on Instagram about family generosity with a picture of the resort website. No mention of my name, of course, but still. I started imagining what the trip would be like. Teaching Billy to snorkel. Having dinner with 3 generations at those beachfront restaurants. Maybe Jessica would finally see that I wasn't just the gruff contractor she'd married into. I even bought new clothes. Not fancy ones, but clean khakis and polo shirts without paint stains. Packed my good shoes instead of work boots. The night before departure, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Sarah. How proud she'd have been to see our family together like this. How she'd have loved watching Billy's face when he saw that crystal clear water. But there was something else keeping me awake. A nagging feeling that I was trying to buy something that should have been freely given. Respect. Inclusion. Basic human decency from my son's wife. See, the real stakes here weren't the $25,000. I'd made that back in investment interest in 3 months. The stakes were whether I'd continue being treated like a charity case in my own family. If I let this vacation happen as planned, with me as the grateful benefactor who should just be happy to be included, it would set the pattern forever. I'd be the family ATM, available for emergencies, convenient for major purchases, but not really family. Not really welcome. Tommy had started referring to me as generous in his texts to Jessica's family. My dad's being really generous with this trip. Not, my dad wanted to treat the family, or my dad thought we'd enjoy this together. Generous. Like I was some distant relative throwing money at them out of guilt or loneliness. And maybe that's exactly what Jessica thought I was doing. The lonely widower, desperately trying to buy his way into their perfect suburban life. The morning of departure, I was loading my suitcase into the truck when my phone buzzed. Group text from Jessica to the whole family. "So excited for our adventure. Can't wait to make memories with the people who matter most." 8 people on the trip, 7 people on the text chain. That's when I realized I'd been thinking about this all wrong. I wasn't buying a vacation. I was buying a lesson. The question was whether I'd be the student or the teacher. Turned out they were about to find out who was really in control. The first confrontation happened at Tommy's backyard barbecue 3 weeks before the trip. Jessica's parents were there, along with her sister's family and some neighbors. About 20 people total. I'd been manning the grill unpaid labor as usual when Jessica's father started talking about the vacation plans. "This Turks and Caicos resort looks incredible," he said, showing pictures on his phone. "Must have cost a fortune. Good thing Tommy's doing so well at his new job." Tommy shot me a look. We'd agreed to keep my contribution quiet, let people assume it was his treat. I nodded and flipped the burgers, but Jessica had other plans. "Actually, Frank paid for it," she announced to the entire group. "All of it. $25,000. The conversation stopped. People turned to stare at me, standing there in my work clothes, holding a spatula. "That's incredibly generous, Frank," said Mrs. Patterson, Jessica's mother, but her tone suggested she was calculating where a retired contractor gets that kind of money. Jessica wasn't done. "Frank insisted on paying. I told Tommy it was too much, but you know how stubborn older people can get about spending money." Stubborn older people, in front of 20 guests. "Frank probably saved for years for this," Jessica continued. "It's really sweet, actually." His way of staying connected to the family. Sweet. Like I was a pet project. "I mean, we could have afforded it ourselves eventually," she added quickly, "but Frank really wanted to contribute." We didn't want to hurt his feelings by saying no. Every word was a knife. She'd turned my gift into their charity case. Made me the desperate father-in-law begging for inclusion with his wallet. Tommy tried to change the subject. "Dad, these burgers smell amazing." But Jessica's sister Emily jumped in. "That's such a nice gesture, Frank. I know how hard it is to feel useful after retirement." "Feel useful? Jesus. Especially when you're not used to the lifestyle Tommy and Jessica have built," Emily continued. "It must be overwhelming." I set down the spatula, looked directly at Jessica. "What lifestyle is that?" "You know," Jessica said, laughing nervously, "the whole corporate world, networking events, country club memberships. Different from what you're used to." "Different how?" "Just different social circles, different expectations." Tommy jumped in. "Dad, let's not." "No," I said quietly. "I'd like to understand. What expectations?" Jessica's voice got that sweet, condescending tone. "Frank, you have to understand. When Tommy's colleagues meet the family, first impressions matter. These are people making six-figure decisions. They notice things like presentation. Presentation. I was wearing clean jeans and a polo shirt, same brands Tommy wore. What about my presentation concerns you?" "It's not concerns, exactly. It's just, look, you're wonderful, Frank, but you drive that old truck, you dress very practical. You talk about construction projects and tools. Tommy's boss might not understand that our family has range. Range. Our family. So, the $25,000 I just spent demonstrates what exactly?" Jessica's face flushed. She hadn't expected me to push back. "That's not what I meant. Because it sounds like you're saying I'm good enough to fund your lifestyle, but not good enough to participate in it." The party had gone completely silent. Kids were still playing in the pool, but every adult was listening. Tommy stepped between us. "Dad, come on." "That's not what she's saying." "Then what is she saying?" Jessica recovered her composure. "I'm saying that money isn't everything, Frank. There's also education, sophistication, knowing how to behave in certain situations." Sophistication. "Yes, like understanding wine lists, or knowing which fork to use, or being able to discuss current events beyond local construction permits." Each word was calculated to cut. She'd been storing these observations for months, waiting for the right moment to deploy them. "I see," I said. "So when we get to Turks and Caicos, should I eat in the staff dining room? Make sure I don't embarrass you in front of the other sophisticated guests." "Frank," Tommy said sharply, "that's enough." But I wasn't talking to Tommy anymore. I was looking directly at Jessica, watching her struggle between her desire to say yes and her awareness that 20 people were recording every word. "Maybe I should just stay home," I said. "Let you enjoy the vacation with people who understand wine lists." "That's not necessary," Jessica said quickly. "We want you there. We just think it might be good if you observed how other people interact in that environment. Learn from it. Learn from it. Like I was her social experiment. You want me to pay $25,000 for a masterclass and not embarrassing you." "Frank, you're twisting my words." "Am I?" Because it sounds like you want me to fund your lifestyle while staying invisible. Pay for the vacation, then hide in the corner while you network with sophisticated people. Tommy grabbed my arm. Dad, let's talk about this inside. But I wasn't done. Just so I'm clear, Jessica. What exactly would I need to do to meet your standards of sophistication? She'd backed herself into a corner. Everyone was watching. Her parents, her sister, the neighbors. She had to either apologize or double down. She doubled down. Honestly, Frank? Start by acting like you belong somewhere besides a construction site. The words hung in the air like smoke. 20 people heard her reduce me to a stereotype. Heard her explain exactly how she saw me. I nodded slowly. Good to know where I stand. Then I walked inside, leaving her to explain herself to a very uncomfortable crowd. The next morning, I got a call that should have been my first clue about how this story would end. Mr. Davis? This is Rick Morrison from Morrison & Associates Contracting. We've got a situation with the Pinnacle Plaza project downtown, and my client specifically requested you. I was sitting on my back porch, still steaming from the barbecue humiliation. Rick, I've been retired for 3 years. I know, sir, but this is a $40 million project, and they're having foundation issues. The client read about your work on the Scottsdale Medical Complex and insists on your consultation. They're offering $50,000 for 2 weeks of oversight. $50,000 for 2 weeks, more than most people make in a year. Who's the client? Patterson Development Group. They're building that new luxury resort on Camelback Mountain. Patterson, same last name as Jessica's mother. Probably no relation, but the irony wasn't lost on me. I'll think about it, Rick. Mr. Davis, with respect, they need an answer today. This is the kind of project that makes careers. Your name still carries serious weight in this industry. After I hung up, I sat there thinking about what Rick had said. Your name still carries weight. In construction, Frank Davis meant something. Meant quality, integrity, projects finished on time and under budget. But in Jessica's world, Frank Davis meant embarrassment. The second hint came that afternoon. I was at the bank, depositing the Morrison contract check when Michael Anderson, the branch manager, spotted me in line. Mr. Davis, don't stand in line, come to my office. Michael had handled my business banking for 15 years, watched me go from small residential jobs to major commercial contracts. He was one of the few people who knew exactly what the business sale had netted me. How's retirement treating you? He asked, closing his office door. Complicated. I heard you're taking the family on some fancy vacation. Good for you. How did you hear that? Your daughter-in-law came in last week asking about wire transfer limits. Said you were sending money for a resort booking. She seemed surprised by the amounts involved. Jessica had been checking up on my finances, trying to figure out how I could afford the vacation. What did you tell her? Nothing specific. Just that wire transfers over $50,000 require additional documentation. She asked if that was normal for accounts like yours. Michael paused. I think she was fishing for information about your balance. And I told her privacy laws prevent me from discussing any customer's finances with third parties. But Frank, she seemed genuinely shocked that you were dealing with those kinds of numbers. That evening, I got another call, this one from Billy's soccer coach. Mr. Davis, I wanted to thank you again for sponsoring the team jerseys. The kids love them. I donated $5,000 for new uniforms last month. Anonymous donation, but the coach had figured out it was me. Did you mention it to anyone? I asked. Just Tommy when I saw him at pickup yesterday. Told him what a generous grandfather Billy has. Tommy seemed surprised you hadn't mentioned it. Of course Tommy was surprised, because in Jessica's narrative, I was the struggling retiree who needed their patience and understanding. She'd never consider that I might be quietly supporting my grandson's activities. The final piece came that weekend. I was cleaning out my garage when I found Sarah's old jewelry box. Inside was the business card from our financial advisor, Janet Stevens, and a note in Sarah's handwriting. For Frank, remember what we built together. I called Janet Monday morning. Frank, how are you handling everything? I know Sarah's death was devastating. Getting by? Janet, I want to ask you something. If someone wanted to research my financial situation, what would they find? Publicly? Almost nothing. Your accounts are private. The business sale was structured to minimize public records. Unless someone had inside access or hired a private investigator, they'd just know you sold Davis Construction for an undisclosed amount. What if they asked you directly? Client confidentiality. I wouldn't tell my own mother about your portfolio. I was invisible, hidden in plain sight. Jessica saw the work boots and the old truck and never looked deeper. She had no idea she was married into money, real money. And that's when I realized something that would change everything. Knowledge is power, but hidden knowledge is devastating. The airport confrontation happened exactly the way I'd feared it would. I arrived at Phoenix Sky Harbor at 7:30 a.m., pulling my worn duffel bag from the back of my F-150. The parking garage was already busy with vacation travelers, families loading expensive luggage onto carts. Tommy's family was waiting at the departure curb with enough designer luggage for a month-long expedition. Jessica's parents and her sister's family had already checked in, standing in a cluster near the first-class counter, all coordinated outfits and excitement. I walked over carrying my single bag, wearing clean jeans and the new polo shirt I'd bought specifically for this trip. Jessica took one look at me, and her face fell. "Frank?" she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You can't wear that on the plane. What's wrong with what I'm wearing?" It's very casual. This is first class. There are expectations." Emily, Jessica's sister, jumped in. "Maybe Frank didn't realize this wasn't a camping trip." Laughter from Jessica's parents. Nervous glances from Tommy. "I have a blazer in my bag," I said quietly. "It's not just the clothes," Jessica continued. "It's the whole presentation. Frank, you have to understand, we're going to be around very successful people at this resort. CEOs, executives, celebrities. They'll be judging our entire family based on how we present ourselves." More people were watching now. Other travelers curious about the family drama unfolding near the first-class check-in. "So what are you suggesting?" I asked. Jessica looked at Tommy, then back at me. "Maybe it would be better if you stayed home this time." The words hit like a physical blow. Stay home, from the vacation I'd paid for. "Jessica," Tommy said sharply. "No, Tommy, someone has to say it. Look around. Look at how everyone else is dressed, how they carry themselves. Frank is going to stand out for all the wrong reasons." Mrs. Patterson nodded. "Jessica's right, Frank. These resort communities can be very particular about their clientele." "Particular how?" "They expect a certain level of sophistication, social awareness. You have to fit in." Jessica's voice got that sweet, condescending tone again. "Frank, you're a wonderful person, but you've never been around this level of wealth and privilege. You might not understand the social dynamics. I might embarrass you." "It's not about embarrassment. It's about respect for the environment we're entering." Tommy tried to intervene. "Dad, maybe we could talk about this." "No," Jessica cut him off. "Frank, I've been thinking about this for weeks. This resort caters to Fortune 500 executives, international celebrities, old money families, people who summer in the Hamptons and winter in Aspen. You're going to feel completely out of place." Each word was a calculated strike. She'd been planning this speech, rehearsing the exact way to exclude me, while making it sound like concern for my comfort. "Plus," Emily added, "the activities are all very upscale. Wine tastings, yacht excursions, golf at championship courses. Nothing really suitable for your interests. Suitable for my interests. They'd decided I was too simple for luxury." "So you're uninviting me," I said, "from the vacation I paid for." Jessica's face flushed, but she pressed on. "Frank, we're grateful for your generosity, really. But maybe this particular trip isn't the right fit. Maybe we could plan something more appropriate for everyone next time. More appropriate. Something more relaxed, less formal. Maybe a nice cabin somewhere, or camping. Something where you'd be comfortable." The family stood there watching this public humiliation. Jessica's parents nodding along, Emily smirking, Tommy looking torn between loyalty and social pressure. Other travelers were openly staring now, a father being excluded from a family vacation by his son's wife, in public, at the airport. "You want me to drive home," I said, "while you enjoy the $25,000 vacation I bought for this family." "We'll pay you back," Jessica said quickly. "Eventually. When we can afford it. When they could afford it." "With what money?" Tommy's salary barely covered their mortgage. the mortgage I'd been secretly paying for 2 years. Frank, Mrs. Patterson said gently, maybe Jessica's right. You might be more comfortable somewhere less demanding. Demanding. A beach vacation was too demanding for the simple contractor. I looked at Tommy, my son, waiting to see if he'd stand up for his father or side with his wife's social ambitions. Dad, he said quietly, maybe we could figure out another trip. Just us, somewhere more low-key. That's when I knew. My own son was choosing Jessica's narrative over our relationship, choosing her version of who I was supposed to be. I pulled out my phone, calm, deliberate, the way I'd handled business crises for 30 years. Frank, what are you doing? Jessica asked, making a phone call. To who? I didn't answer, just dialed the number I'd memorized 3 weeks ago. Grace Bay Resort, VIP concierge services, this is Maria speaking. Maria, this is Frank Davis. I have a reservation for 8 people departing today. Jessica's eyes went wide. She'd assumed I booked through some discount travel site, didn't realize I had direct contact with the resort's VIP services. Mr. Davis, yes, everything is confirmed for your party. Your suites are ready, and the private transfers are standing by in Turks and Caicos. I need to cancel everything. Silence on the phone. Gasps from the family. Sir, are you certain? This is quite short notice, and the cancellation fees. Cancel it all, right now. I looked directly at Jessica while I spoke. Her face had gone completely white. Mr. Davis, that's a $24,900 cancellation. I'll need to process a full refund, minus the administrative fee. Do it. Frank, wait, Tommy said, grabbing my arm. You can't just... But I was still talking to Maria. Also, cancel the return flight upgrades and the spa credits. Certainly, sir. I'll have our accounting department process the refund immediately. Is there anything else I can help you with today? That's all, Maria. Thank you. I hung up. The family stood there in stunned silence. Frank, Jessica whispered, what did you just do? I made sure you won't be embarrassed by my presence at Grace Bay Resort. You canceled our vacation. I canceled my vacation. You're welcome to book your own. That's when the real panic set in. The moment everything changed started with a voice I didn't expect to hear. Mr. Davis? Frank Davis? I turned around. A woman in a Grace Bay Resort uniform was approaching our group, tablet in hand, professional smile bright. Sarah Williams, travel coordinator, she said, extending her hand. I handle VIP arrangements for Grace Bay. I happened to be here coordinating another client's departure when I heard your name. Jessica looked confused. Why would a resort coordinator approach us at Phoenix Sky Harbor? I wanted to personally thank you for choosing Grace Bay again, Sarah continued. I hope this trip will be as memorable as your last visit in 2019. Again, last visit. Jessica's face was a question mark. You've been to this resort before? Tommy asked. Sarah answered before I could. Oh yes, Mr. Davis stayed in our chairman's suite during the construction industry conference. Beautiful oceanfront penthouse. I believe you extended your stay twice? The chairman's suite. Jessica's mouth opened slightly. That's right, I said quietly. Business trip. Well, I'm disappointed to hear about the cancellation, Sarah said, checking her tablet. Especially for your repeat VIP guest status. Is there anything we can do to reconsider? Perhaps an upgrade to the presidential villa? VIP guest status, presidential villa. The words hung in the air. Frank, Jessica said slowly, how exactly did you afford the chairman's suite in 2019? Sarah looked surprised by the question. Mr. Davis, should I not have mentioned... It's fine, Sarah. Wait, Emily said. You stayed at this resort before? On what? A construction worker's salary? Sarah's professional demeanor shifted slightly. Something in Emily's tone triggered her protective instincts for a valued client. Ma'am, Mr. Davis isn't a construction worker. He owned Davis Construction, one of the premier commercial builders in the Southwest. Owned? Jessica asked. The business was sold in 2022, Sarah said, consulting her tablet. I remember because Mr. Davis called to book our grand estate for a celebration that never happened. Said his wife had passed away. The grand estate. Tommy looked at me like he'd never seen me before. That's when Michael Anderson appeared. I hadn't seen him approaching from the business class check-in, but there he was, my bank manager, walking over with obvious recognition. Frank, what are you doing here? Don't tell me you're flying commercial. Michael's casual comment hit like a bomb. Flying commercial? As opposed to what? Just family travel, Michael. That's a change. Usually when I process your travel expenses, it's private jets or first-class international. He looked at the group curiously. Everything okay with the family trip? Jessica was staring at Michael like he was speaking a foreign language. Travel expenses. Private jets. Michael, I said carefully, this is my family. Tommy, Jessica, and Jessica's family. Michael's face brightened. Tommy, I've heard so much about you. Your father's incredibly proud. He turned to Jessica. And you must be Jessica. Frank talks about you all the time. Jessica found her voice. You know Frank professionally? I'm his private banker at Scottsdale Financial. Have been for 15 years. Watched him build his company from a small operation to... Michael paused, looking at me. Sorry, Frank. I assume family knows about the business sale? What business sale? Tommy asked. Michael looked confused. Davis Construction? The sale to Morrison Development Group? How much was that sale for? Jessica asked, her voice barely a whisper. Michael glanced at me, then back at her. I can't discuss specific amounts, but it was substantial. Enough to make Frank one of our platinum private clients. Platinum private clients. The pieces were clicking together in Jessica's head, but she couldn't quite believe what she was hearing. Sarah, the resort coordinator, had been listening with growing understanding. Mrs. Davis, Jessica said automatically. Jessica Davis. Mrs. Davis, I think there might be some confusion here. Your father-in-law is one of Grace Bay's most valued guests. When he books with us, it's typically our top-tier accommodations. Define top-tier, Emily said. The chairman's suite runs $25,000 per week. The presidential villa is $40,000. Mr. Davis has stayed in both. Per week. Not per trip. Per week. Tommy was doing math in his head. Dad, how much money do you have? That's when Michael made the comment that changed everything. Well, I can't give specifics, but let's just say the interest on Frank's investments pays more per month than most people's salaries. Interest on investments. More than most salaries. Per month. Jessica grabbed Tommy's arm. How much interest are we talking about? Michael looked uncomfortable. I really can't... It's okay, Michael, I said quietly. They're about to find out anyway. I pulled out my wallet. Not the worn leather one I usually carried, but the thin black card holder I kept in my truck's console. I handed Jessica my American Express Centurion card. She looked at it like it was radioactive. What is this? Invitation-only card, Sarah said, recognizing it immediately. Also called the black card. Minimum spending requirement is typically $500,000 per year. $500,000 per year in spending. Jessica's hands were shaking. Frank, I don't understand. Michael stepped in. Maybe I can clarify. Frank, with your permission? I nodded. Davis Construction was sold 3 years ago for $8.2 million. The number hit the family like a physical force. Jessica actually stumbled backward. $8 million? Tommy whispered. .2, Michael corrected. But that's just the business sale. Frank's investment portfolio, real estate holdings, and liquid assets bring the total net worth to... He looked at me questioningly. They can know, I said. Just over $15 million. $15 million. The words echoed in the suddenly quiet airport space. Jessica was hyperventilating. $15 million? Conservative estimate, Michael said. Market fluctuations, you understand? Sarah was putting pieces together. Mrs. Davis, when you expressed concerns about your father-in-law fitting in at Grace Bay, what exactly were you worried about? I thought he was... Jessica couldn't finish the sentence. You thought he was poor, Emily said flatly. Jessica nodded, tears starting to form. Tommy was staring at me. Dad, why didn't you tell us? You never asked, I said simply. You assumed I was struggling, so I let you assume. But the old truck, the work clothes... I like my truck. I'm comfortable in work clothes. Having money doesn't mean I need to change who I am. Sarah was scrolling through her tablet. Mr. Davis, I'm looking at your guest history. You've spent over $200,000 at Grace Bay in the past 5 years. $200,000. Jessica was crying now, understanding the magnitude of her mistake. "Frank," she whispered, "I had no idea." "No," I said calmly, "you had an idea. You decided I was beneath your social circle. You judged me based on my appearance and treated me like a charity case." Michael was getting uncomfortable with the family drama. "Frank, I should probably head to my gate." "Michael, one more thing. When Jessica came to the bank asking about my wire transfers, what exactly did she want to know?" Michael glanced at Jessica, then back at me. "She wanted to know if you were liquidating retirement accounts to pay for the vacation. Said she was concerned you were spending money you couldn't afford." Couldn't afford. Even after I'd paid $25,000, Jessica was convinced I was financially overextending myself. "I told her that wasn't the case," Michael continued, "but I couldn't provide details." "Thank you, Michael." After he left, the family stood in stunned silence. Other travelers were openly watching now, having caught pieces of the conversation. Sarah cleared her throat. "Mr. Davis, about the cancellation. Given the circumstances, I'd be happy to waive all fees and reinstate your reservation." "That won't be necessary, Sarah, but thank you." "Are you sure?" "I could upgrade the entire party to the presidential villa at no additional charge." Jessica looked up hopefully, but I shook my head. "I'm sure." Sarah handed me her business card. "Please call if you change your mind." "Grace Bay would be honored to host you again." After she left, Jessica finally found her voice. "Frank, I'm so sorry." "I had no idea," I thought. "You thought exactly what you wanted to think. That I was the embarrassing poor relative you had to tolerate. But if I'd known, you'd have treated me differently?" She nodded eagerly. "That's exactly the problem, Jessica. You treated me based on what you thought I was worth financially. That's not respect. That's calculation. The truth was settling over the entire family now. Every comment, every exclusion, every condescending remark, all based on a completely false assumption about my financial status." Tommy finally spoke. "Dad, what happens now?" I looked at my son, then at his wife, then at the extended family who'd spent 2 years treating me like a burden. "Now you all learn what respect actually costs." I pulled out my phone again. This time I didn't explain who I was calling. The first call was to my attorney, James Mitchell. "Jim, it's Frank Davis. I need you to stop payment on a cashier's check." "Frank, good morning. Which check?" $100,000 made out to Pinnacle Mortgage Services. Check number 4471. I could hear papers shuffling. "That's the down payment for your son's house purchase?" "That's right." "Frank, if I stop payment now, their financing falls through. They'd lose the house." "I understand." Jessica grabbed my arm. "What house purchase?" I covered the phone. "The house you're living in. I bought it." "You've been living in my house for 6 months." Her face went white. "That's impossible. Jim, process the stop payment immediately." "Are you certain about this, Frank?" "It's a significant financial commitment they'll lose." "I'm certain." After I hung up, Jessica was almost hyperventilating. "Frank, what are you talking about?" "We bought that house. We have a mortgage. You have a mortgage for $200,000. The house cost $300,000. I paid the $100,000 down payment through a shell company so you could qualify for the loan." Tommy was staring at me. "Dad, that's our house." "Actually, it's my house. The deed shows 51% ownership to Davis Holdings, LLC. That's my company." "You own our house?" "I own controlling interest in your house, which means I can force a sale." The second call was to Michael Anderson. "Michael, Frank again. I need to stop the automatic transfers from my account to Pinnacle Mortgage. The monthly payments for your son's house? Those are the ones. Frank, that's $3,400 a month. If those payments stop, they'll go into default within 60 days. Are you sure about this? Stop the transfers, effective immediately." Jessica was crying now. "Frank, you can't do this. We have a child. Billy's in school." "You should have thought about Billy before you decided I was too embarrassing to join the family vacation I paid for." The third call was to my financial advisor, Janet Stevens. "Janet, it's Frank. I need you to liquidate the college fund." "Which college fund?" "The one for Billy Davis. $50,000. Jessica screamed. "You set up a college fund for Billy?" "Janet, move those funds to my personal account." "Frank, are you sure? That fund has been growing for 3 years." "I'm sure." After I hung up, the family was in complete meltdown. Jessica was sobbing. Tommy was trying to process the magnitude of what was happening, and Jessica's parents were frantically whispering to each other. "Frank," Tommy said desperately, "please don't do this. We can fix this." "Fix what?" "The fact that your wife spent 2 years treating me like a charity case? The fact that she just publicly excluded me from a vacation I funded. She didn't know. She didn't want to know. She saw what she wanted to see and treated me accordingly." The fourth call was to Rick Morrison from Morrison Contracting. "Rick, Frank Davis, about that Pinnacle Plaza consulting job." "Frank, did you decide to take it?" "I did, but I want to add a condition." "What's that?" "I want my name prominently displayed on the project signage. Project Consultant. Frank Davis, Davis Construction." "That's unusual, but for $50,000 in consulting fees, we can make that happen." "Make it happen." I hung up and looked at Jessica. "In 3 months, there will be a billboard downtown with my name on it. Frank Davis, Construction Consultant. Just in case any of your sophisticated friends want to know what I do for work." Jessica was hyperventilating. "Frank, please, we can talk about this. We can fix our relationship." "Our relationship was never broken, Jessica. You just decided it wasn't worth having." "But I didn't know about the money." "Exactly. You treated me like garbage when you thought I was poor. Now that you know I'm wealthy, suddenly you want to fix things." Tommy stepped forward. "Dad, what do you want?" "What would make this right?" I looked at my son, the boy I'd raised, supported, and quietly helped for 36 years. "I want respect, Tommy. Not because of my bank account, because I'm your father." "You have my respect?" "Do I?" "Because 30 minutes ago you were ready to let your wife exclude me from the family vacation." Tommy couldn't argue with that. "Frank," Jessica whispered, "how do we fix this?" "You don't fix this. You live with the consequences of your choices." "What consequences?" "You wanted me out of your sophisticated social circle. You got your wish." I picked up my duffel bag and started walking toward the exit. "Frank, where are you going?" Tommy called. "Home, to my house, the one I actually own." The aftermath unfolded exactly as I'd expected, but faster than anyone was prepared for. By Tuesday morning, Tommy was calling every hour. "Dad, we need to talk. Jessica wants to apologize properly." She had 2 years to apologize. She chose humiliation instead. "But Dad, we're going to lose the house." "You were never going to keep the house, Tommy. You couldn't afford the down payment, and you can't afford the mortgage without my help." The first real consequence hit Wednesday. Jessica's book club friends started calling, having heard about the airport incident through Emily, who couldn't resist sharing the drama. "Is it true your father-in-law is a millionaire?" they asked. "Is it true he owns your house?" Jessica tried damage control, posted a cryptic message on Instagram about family misunderstandings and jumping to conclusions. But the sophisticated social circle she'd been so worried about protecting had already heard the story. Thursday brought the legal notice. My attorney filed paperwork to force the sale of the house due to breach of the co-ownership agreement. Tommy had 30 days to buy out my 51% stake or vacate the property. "Frank," Tommy said during his Thursday evening call, "you're destroying my family. I'm protecting mine. There's a difference. Billy doesn't understand why we have to move. Tell Billy his grandmother Jessica decided Grandpa Frank wasn't good enough for the family vacation, so Grandpa Frank decided they weren't good enough for his house." "Dad, that's cruel." "Cruel was watching your wife exclude me in front of 20 people at the airport. Cruel was listening to her explain why I wasn't sophisticated enough for her social circle." Friday brought the mortgage crisis. Without my monthly payments, Pinnacle Mortgage sent a default notice. Jessica called, crying, "Frank, please," just until we can figure something out. "Figure what out?" "You don't have $3,000, let alone $3,400 for the mortgage. Tommy's getting a raise. Tommy's getting a 5% raise. That's $300 a month before taxes. You need $3,400. We'll take a second job. Jessica, you make $42,000 a year in marketing. Tommy makes $68,000 in software. Your monthly expenses are $4,800. The math doesn't work." The weekend brought social consequences. Jessica's parents stopped taking her calls after realizing they'd participated in humiliating a millionaire. Emily posted on Facebook about family drama and learning about assumptions, positioning herself as the wise sister who'd seen it coming. Monday morning, Tommy showed up at my house unannounced. "Dad, we need to move back in with Jessica's parents." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because Billy's asking why Grandpa Frank doesn't love us anymore." That hit harder than I expected. Billy was 8 years old. He didn't understand adult conflicts about respect and social status. "I love Billy. This isn't about him." "Then stop punishing him for Jessica's mistakes." I looked at my son standing in the doorway of the house I'd built, asking me to reconsider consequences his wife had earned. "Tommy, do you understand what happened at that airport?" Jessica made a mistake. Jessica revealed who she really is. After 2 years of disrespect, after countless comments about my social status, after treating me like a burden she had to tolerate, she decided to exclude me from the vacation I paid for. She's sorry. She's sorry she got caught. She's sorry she didn't know about the money. She's not sorry about how she treated me. Tuesday brought the breaking point. Jessica called at 6 a.m., sobbing. "Frank, I'm pregnant." I sat down heavily. "What?" 10 weeks. We were going to announce it on the vacation. That's why I was so stressed about everything being perfect. Pregnant, a grandchild. Everything suddenly felt more complicated. "Frank, please." "I know I was wrong. I know I treated you terribly. But there's going to be another baby, and I can't raise 2 children while living with my parents." I closed my eyes. Sarah would have wanted me to help, would have insisted that family comes first, always. But Sarah also would have been appalled by Jessica's behavior, would have demanded real change, not just apologies motivated by financial desperation. "Jessica, being pregnant doesn't erase 2 years of disrespect." "I know, but can we please talk? Can we figure out a way forward that doesn't destroy Billy's life?" "What are you proposing?" "Family counseling. Real conversations about respect and boundaries. A genuine apology, not just words." I thought about Billy, about my unborn grandchild, about the difference between justice and revenge. "One conversation," I said finally. "All 3 of us. You, Tommy, and me. If you can convince me you understand what went wrong and how to fix it, we'll discuss terms." "Terms?" "Conditions for rebuilding this relationship. Starting with respect." Wednesday, we had that conversation. The meeting happened at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd written the check for their wedding 5 years ago. Jessica looked exhausted. 2 weeks of financial stress, social embarrassment, and pregnancy hormones had taken their toll. But for the first time in 2 years, when she looked at me, I saw something different. Not calculation, not judgment, something closer to understanding. "Frank," she said quietly, "I need you to know that I understand what I did wrong. Tell me. I judged you based on appearances and assumptions. I treated you like you were less than us when you were actually supporting us. I made you feel unwelcome in your own family. It was a start, but I needed more." "Why did you do it?" Jessica took a shaky breath. "Because I was insecure. My friends had these successful families, parents with obvious money and status. I wanted our family to look like that. I thought if you looked different, it reflected badly on Tommy and me. So you decided I was the problem. I decided you didn't fit the image I wanted. And that was wrong. Incredibly wrong." Tommy jumped in. "Dad, we want to rebuild this relationship. What would that look like? I'd been thinking about this for 2 weeks. What did I actually want?" "Respect," I said simply. "Not because of my money, because I'm your father and your family." "What does that mean practically?" Jessica asked. "It means including me in family decisions that affect me. It means not making assumptions about what I